Hello and welcome to my game development with Python 3 and PyGame tutorial series. What I aim to do here is, first of all, we're going to use the programming language of Python, specifically Python 3. You should be able to follow along with Python 2, and then maybe even some later languages of Python 3. There might be some minor syntax changes, but for the most part, everything should be relatively similar. What I like about Python and also PyGame and game development in general with programming is that you can take a topic that people find interesting. So a lot of people ask me what the first thing they should do when they program, or like how to learn to program. And my question right back to them is, well, like, what do you want to program? And you have to find something that you're interested in. So for me, I learned to program learning natural language processing with the NLTK module with Python, and I just got like this big natural language processing PDF book basically, and that worked for me because I was really interested in that. That's not going to work for most people because most people don't care about natural language processing, so that's not going to be a good first topic. But for a lot of people, games are a great first topic because games are fun. And the other thing that's great about programming games for education of programming is because you can visualize the logic that you code. So a lot of times you can't really visualize what you're doing, but with games you can. You can visualize everything. You can visualize the machine learning or artificial intelligence. You get to visualize the mathematics like physics and all of that, and you get to visualize your logic, whether or not your logic works. So I think Python's a great programming language for new programmers just because the syntax is really simple. But I think games are also really great for teaching people how to program, but also just to kind of hone in on your programming skills. Now, I realize not everybody's watching this tutorial brand new to Python, so some of you guys just want to learn how to do PyGame or make games with Python now. So this series, if you don't know anything about programming, you can follow this series. Might be a little fast-paced for you, but if you don't know how something works, then I highly suggest you just check out the basics tutorial series for Python 3. I have a basic series for all the basics of Python 3, so if there's something you're confused about, like a while loop or a for loop, check that out. Also, if you don't already have Python or PyGame, I'm going to run through those things really quick. For Python, you're going to want to head over here to python.org, head to downloads, and download either Python 3.4 or 2.7, but we're going to be using Python 3. And if just for the record, if there's Python 4 out, you'll probably be able to do it if PyGame is supported anyways. Any version of Python 3 should be fine though, so download that. Also, just if you are on Windows or any machine that you really want to preference between 64 and 32-bit, if you have a 64-bit machine, you should definitely choose 64-bit Python. So you'll have to go to downloads and like latest release, and then go to their downloads page here. The path might be a little different depending on when you're watching this, but anyways, here's your 64-bit release for Mac OS. Here's your 64-bit release. Where is it for Windows? I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Right. So you want to do that. Once you have Python, and first of all, installing Python is really simple. Just download it and install it, and that's it. So you'll have Python if you don't have it. Next, you're going to need PyGame, and for PyGame, we're going to head over to pygame.org, and we'll go to downloads, and here's where you can download. They've got various things split up. Here's the source if you want to just download the source and move it yourself. Windows, Unix, Mac, Nokia. If you want to, you can use PyGame on Nokia phones. And then there's also PyGame for Android here, all kinds of fun stuff, so keep that in mind. Now for me, I'm on Windows, for example, so I would download that. Also, if you are on Windows and you have 64-bit, like I just said you should get, probably the best thing you can do is head over to this link that they're suggesting, and I've got that up here, and it's like this unofficial Windows binaries page, and you can basically get like all of your packages from here. So and they're all like Windows installers, and a lot of packages don't come in 64-bit, so you can get them here. So anyway, if you're on Windows, you could just type in PyGame. So here's PyGame, click on that, and then we come down here, and we're 3.4 right now, and we only want 64-bit, so it would be this one right here. Click that, download PyGame, and you should have PyGame. Now, once you're all done, what you'll want to do is we'll get out of here, and you should be able to open up a Python command line. So you could either open up this and see it says your version here, and then whether you're 32 or 64-bit. So you can open up your shell and then go import and PyGame like that. Hit enter and make sure you can import PyGame. If you can't import PyGame, something went wrong. Either reinstall, check your installation, all that. Make sure you matched up 34 and 62 or 32 and 64-bit. Also your Python version. Make sure all that stuff matched up. Otherwise, if you're still having trouble, leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to help you out. So make sure you can import PyGame. And just as an aside, the kind of environment that I like to program in is just the straight IDLE, which is interactive development environment. And it's actually not really, the one I use is not really active, but to get it, you would go, like if you're on Windows, you would just go to Start, and then you can find it there. But it's just literally called IDLE for Python. You would click on that, so you could just search for idle. Oops, I opened up Python 2.7. So 3.4, open up idle, and come over here. And so like, this is interactive, so if you said print hi, it's going to immediately output hi, and so it's kind of annoying to me to have an interactive environment. So what we're going to be programming in is you go here, so you open up IDLE, which is your shell, go File, New File, and that opens up a blank document. And from there, we can code, right? So you can say print, hi, and you can keep coding it, and it's not spitting anything out at you yet, and then you can run it when you're all done. So that's the environment we're gonna program in. And then also to run it, you'll have to save. So just go File, Save it as something, whatever it is you want to call it, .py, whatever. So with that, sorry if that was a little long-winded for some of you guys who already have PyGame installed and downloaded and all that, but needed to cover that just for anybody who doesn't have that. And now we're ready to actually do some basic PyGame code. So we're not going to get too in-depth in this video, but I just want to show you guys a basic PyGame window and all of that. So, so first we're going to go import PyGame, because in order to use PyGame we have to import it. So import PyGame, and then PyGame is like this, it's an instance, quite literally. So what you're going to need to do is we're going to go pygame.init, which is initiate, and what this is going to do is it's going to initiate PyGame and all the modules that come with PyGame. So this is basically as necessary as your import, and it needs to be the first thing you do with PyGame. So before you do anything else, like draw a window or just anything, before you do anything else, you have to do import PyGame and pygame.init. And obviously you would put your other imports up here if you needed them. For those who don't know, with Python, you download a module, you go import that module. There's a lot of other syntax involved with importing. Feel free to look that up if you want on my channel. Otherwise, just know that we're importing the module here. And this references the initiation function with PyGame. So it calls the init function. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to set up, so all games are in Windows, like a window, so to speak. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set up our windows. So and the way that it works, just in case you didn't follow the Tkinter tutorial series, windows are actually more like surfaces, okay? So, or frames. So you've got a frame, and then within the frame you have windows, and it's kind of like that with PyGame. You've got it's basically your window is not really a window, it's a surface is what you're going to call it. That's what you think of anyways, but you could have multiple surfaces and stuff, but for us we're going to keep things really simple. So anyway, we're going to say game display for our variable, and game display is going to equal pygame.display.set_mode, and this is going to be the game's width and height, basically. And width, height are basically the resolution, so to speak, of the game. It has to be supplied. It's a single argument, so we supply it with a tuple. So if you remember your basics, a tuple is defined with brackets like this. You pretty much have to, because, for example, we're going to say our game is 800 by 600, so 800 wide, 600 tall. You can also, if you remember the basics, a tuple can be one of two things, right? You can either do this, or you can do it with that, like this. We won't really get away with it like this because since we're passing it through a function, it would treat each of these as a parameter. So we want to put it at, around brackets so Python knows that, hey, this is just a tuple as a parameter. Anyway, so this sets our display, sets the size of our display, and we're ready to move on. So next, we go pygame.display.set_caption. And for us, what we're going to do is we're going to make kind of like not really a racing game. We're not racing anything, but we're going to have a little car and we're going to avoid objects. I'm going to make the car a race car, and I thought we could call our game a bit racy. Now, what that's going to do is it just basically changes the title of the window. So it says caption, but it's really like the window title. So right here, Python 3.4.1, right, would be a bit racy instead. So, so that's that. Next thing that we want to do is we define the game's clock. And what a clock is it basically, it's going to time things for us. And for our purposes, we use it for frames per second. So let's write this out real quick. So we're going to say clock, and that's going to be our game clock, equals pygame.time.C clock. And yeah, I don't really want to say too much more on clock, just besides the fact that it's your specific game clock. So you could also use some sort of timing feature as well, but you definitely want to use clock because it's like it imposes it on everything in the game. So anyway, you want to have your own specific PyGame clock. Now, that basically defines every like major thing we need to define. But then you have, you know, a game, and so your game has what's known as either, you know, you've got a main loop or a game loop is what people generally call it. And everything in that game loop is where all your logic is thrown in, and it will change, you know, basically what the game looks like and what's happening. So now we want to kind of make our little game loop here. And the only thing that will break us out of this game loop that's going on, so basically like the game loop is like the logic for your game. So the only thing that would ever like stop the game from running would be like one of two things. Either for us, since it's a race game, we're going to say the only thing that would stop us would either be we crashed or we decided to quit and we close out the window or something like that. So the quit command will come later on. That will have something that breaks us out of the loop at any time. But the one thing that will break us out of the loop every time, and it's like part of the game logic, would be if we crashed. So we start the game by saying crashed equals false. So we're saying we have not crashed, right? So you start the game, you haven't crashed yet. But then if crashed equals true, we need to do something, right? We crashed, so probably going to reset or something like that. So let me clear this up a little bit. So crashed equals false. And then we're going to say while not crashed. So what this asks is while crashed still equals false, basically. So if you said while crashed, this would only run if you did crash. But while not crashed basically means exactly what it sounds like. So that's why I think Python syntax is so easy. It's like a sentence pretty much. But anyway, while not crashed, what do we want to do? Well, we want to like start our loop. And at the beginning of every like loop, and what's nice about PyGame is it grabs all of the events for you, and it sort of helps with event handling. So I'll show you that in a little bit. But for now, what we're going to say is what PyGame does is it grabs events. So we don't have to like code any of that, so it makes it really simple on us. So we'll just say for event in pygame.event.get. And what pygame.event.get does is it just gets any event that happens. So that's where's the mouse on the screen? Are they clicking? Are they pressing keys? What key are they pressing? All of that stuff is handled by PyGame. They have the code that does that for you. And what this is going to do is basically it creates a list of events that have happened. And this is a list of events per frame per second, right? So generally only one thing's actually going to happen, but you might have someone moving a mouse and clicking at the same time, especially if you have like a first-person shooter, something like that. But generally it's probably only going to be one event. But anyway, at least for our game it will be. For event in pygame.event.get, what do we want to do? Well, for now, the only thing we're going to ask is if the user wants to quit. So we're not going to force them to keep playing the game forever. So we're going to say if events.type equals, so double equals, so this is a comparison operator. If you just had a single equals sign, that's an assignment. We don't want to assign something to event.type. We're going to ask if it equals something. So use a double equal sign. It's a pretty popular place for people to make typos, so make sure you do the double. Equals PyGame dot and then all caps quit. And this is something that's handled within, again, PyGame. So for the most part, well, at least for our uses, a PyGame.quit is going to be when someone hits the X. So they X out of the window. PyGame is going to automatically recognize that as that's a PyGame.quit function, basically. But then we can ask the basically when the person does that, we can handle that, right? So we could choose to not close the window if they hit the X. That's our choice, what we want to do in that scenario. We can make it pop up a message like, are you sure you want to quit? Stuff like that. So anyway, or we just don't let them quit. And so PyGame.quit, and then what we want to do at this point is we want to get out of the loop. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say crashed equals true, so we can break out of this loop. Now, we're just doing that for now. Probably we might change that code. I just want to show you like how you might break out of a loop. This isn't really the best thing because otherwise, you know, you're going to click this and it's going to run the crashed segment basically on us. But anyway, crashed equals true for now. And the other thing I wouldn't mind us doing is let's go ahead and for event in pygame.event.kit, we're going to also print event. So this will just print to console whatever event is happening. So you can just kind of see all of the events that PyGame is tracking on us. And that's basically it. Now, this will only work for a single frame, so we actually need to keep the ball rolling. So, and actually up until this point, all that's happened is we've pygame.init, that's fine, so we've initiated PyGame. We've said, okay, we want our window to be, you know, this size. We want our title to be that. Here's how we're going to measure frames per second. We've not crashed yet, but if we do, we'll say PyGame quit, and then we'll just say we've crashed. We're also going to print the events that occur. But with PyGame, as well as a lot of things in computer graphics and stuff like this, you first kind of generate the stuff in the background, and then when you're all done generating everything in the background, you call a command to push it to the foreground and actually display it. And you'll find that a lot of times the calculations and everything that's occurring in the background, unless it's really, really, you know, complex stuff happening, for the most part, even with like complex stuff, the most computationally taxing event is actually when you go to display it to a screen. That's what really like takes the most processing. So you do all the like calculations, the moving things around, the redrawing, and all of this in the background without actually displaying it. And then when you're all done, you'll go to display it in a brand new frame. And so like that's just kind of the methodology for all kinds of things, like not only PyGame, but also like let's say you're going to do things in matplotlib, for example. Same thing, you draw everything first, and then when it's all drawn, then you show it. Okay. So anyway, that's what we'll do. So after this for loop, so for all the events, after we've gathered all the events and we're printing the event, what do we want to do? Well, we want to update our display. So we're going to say pygame.display.update. And here's an important point to note. There's kind of two ways to do this. You can use pygame.display.update or I guess not and or, but or you could use pygame.display.flip. Okay, and what pygame.display.update is going to do is you can put in a parameter here and it will just update that one thing. So the background processing would be a little easier, and just processing in general will be easier if you were to just update like small things at a time. But if you do not put any parameter in there, it just updates the entire surface. So again, surface, you might as well think of surface as your whole window. It's going to update everything you're seeing. Pygame.display.flip, on the other hand, will always, it doesn't do just a specific thing. It will always just update the entire surface. I'm personally not certain about why anybody, at least for like 2D games, would ever use anything but pygame.display.update. Like, why would anybody use pygame.display.flip when you can do the same thing with update? I'm not too sure. If anybody's watching this, I don't know why they would be watching an introductory video here. But if anybody knows why you would use flip over display to update empty parameters, let me know, because I don't see a purpose for it. Moving on, so we want to update the screen now, and now the next thing we want to do is we want our frame to update, or we want to like move the frame on basically. So whenever so we've defined our clock, and now we want to define frames per second. Basically, how fast are we going to do this stuff, or basically how fast are we going to target? Because sometimes the calculations might take too long, and we want to actually be able to achieve the result we want. But let's just say we're going to try. Well, to do that, we can do clock.tick, and then in here you put the parameter of. It sounds kind of weird that this would be it, but the number you enter here is the frames per second. So if you put 30, that's 30 frames per second. If you put 60, that's 60 frames per second. But if you want something to move fast but smooth, then you increase the frames per second. So you'll see more what I mean later on, but if we want to like speed things up, we could just increase the frames per second that go by, and that makes things just move faster. The other thing you can update is just how fast things move. So you can do all kinds of stuff. And usually updating how fast things move is usually the better option, because this frames per second will make sure you run through this loop, the whole loop, that fast. So that's going to be far more taxing on processing. But anyway, just wanted to cover frames per second and why you might use various numbers. Now that's it. The only other thing left for us is when the user wants to quit. So there's a very specific way we need to exit PyGame. So just like we have to initiate PyGame, we have to like uninitiate PyGame. And the way that we uninitiate PyGame is with pygame.quit, empty parameters, and that will stop PyGame from running. And then we can run any other like quitting function for our program. With Python, we can just quit with quit empty parameters. And that's it. So kind of a long intro, but if we save this and we run this, we get our little window here. There's nothing here, but it's a window. And you see our title a bit racy. And then here is all of our events. And you'll see if I put my mouse over the window, you see new events are popping up. And you'll see the same thing. We can also hit keys. Whoops, let's hit the keys over here. And you can see in the background the keys are being pressed anyway. Let me move it over here. See, we're pressing keys now, and you can see like the keys are popping up and all that. So that's that. And then when we come over here and we hit our X, that exits the PyGame, and then we basically, that was what made the PyGame disappear, is this right here. And then we're being asked, are you sure you want to kill the program? Because we're an idle, this is just the way idle works. And that's just the function of the quit parameter. Well, we'll hit OK. But if you were to say run this game in our in the actual PyGame or Python window, basically from the command line, there's all of our events over here, and we can press keys and all that. But then when we go to exit, it just exits entirely. So that's the purpose of quit. But again, in idle, it's going to be like, are you sure? But anyway, so that's your quick intro to PyGame. We just made a window and all that. Got a long way to go. A lot of stuff to explain. PyGame is such an in-depth module. It can get confusing really fast, especially like I still don't quite understand why you would call it clock.tick 60. I guess it's like how many ticks you want to happen per second. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of other functionalities with PyGame and just making games in general that can kind of be confusing, but we'll get through it. And so anyways, that's it for this one. If you guys have any questions or comments on this tutorial video, leave them below. I'll be happy to help you guys out. Otherwise, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support and subscriptions, and until next time.